Now, can we jump over some stupid shit? I honestly... Who had Jimmy Dore filleting Bongholio and Kash Patel for, this early into this thing? Me, everybody else.
No modern U.S. Supreme Court decision
of course,
has aroused more
ads
passion than Roe v. Wade.
Prager. Right.
If you get attacked and you want to walk away with your life, do not use traditional martial arts.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Gagliotti, and I'm the head of the...
DOJ executes largest healthcare fraud takedown. The U.S. Department of Justice has announced what it describes as the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in its history, charging 324 defendants across 50 federal districts for schemes that involved approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to programs like Medicare and Medicaid. The operation included the seizure of over $245 million in assets and highlighted involvement from international actors in Russia, Eastern Europe, and Pakistan, all friends of the Jimmy Dore Show, focusing on various fraudulent activities, including unnecessary medical equipment, billing, and identity theft for Medicare fraud.
Justice Department's Criminal Division. Thank you all for joining us today as we announce the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in the history of the Department of Justice. Today marks a decisive moment in our fight to protect American taxpayers from fraudsters and to defend the integrity...
Oh, you mean like Rick Scott, or... I'm kidding.
...of America's healthcare system. We are announcing today charges against 324 defendants for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud schemes involving approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare,
or roughly almost as much as we gave Israel last weekend in bombs. Okay.
Wow.
Medicaid, and other healthcare programs.
Okay, so
sorry, the idea is that it's meaningless or it's a big deal.
That's the big announcement. That was they charged 324 defendants across 50 federal districts for schemes that involved approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to programs like Medicaid and Medicare. The operation included the seizure of...
I already read that part.
For $245...
Get on with it.
...million in assets, and highlighted involvement from international actors in Russia, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, focusing on various fraudulent activities.
Yeah, but in all fairness, Medicare was apparently talking about joining NATO, so Russia felt like it had to act.
Including unnecessary medical equipment billing and identity theft for Medicare fraud. And here's...
Eastern Europe, would that be Ukraine by any chance?
I think they don't want to say Ukraine. Dan...
Because there's no evidence that it was Ukraine. The weird part is that you don't want to say Russia. Apparently, that's the reaction.
Bongino says public corruption will not be tolerated as
comedy.
The whole government's one big grift. Are you kidding me?
Is he drunk? This is, by the way, Jimmy and these guys all talk about how the entire government is corrupt, to hide behind the fact that they use that as a smokescreen because they don't want to cop to the fact that they were instrumental in getting Trump elected, and there is a difference in people's lives, and there are people's lives who are being upended and destroyed specifically because there is a difference between who's in charge. And by saying it doesn't matter who's in charge and that it's all corrupt, you can cover your own ass. You can say, well, I mean, what difference does it make which guy I support or which guy I helped get elected? Because they're all bad. Well, then why'd you help either one of them? Because you don't actually care?
Hey, when's that new Epstein evidence where we found out he acted alone and killed him and took his own life? Then the video's coming out any day now. Is that coming, Dan?
He says, I vigorously pursue bad actors who violated their oaths to all of us.
Unless it's Rick Scott, of course. The head of HCA, the healthcare company, formerly known as Columbia HCA, the largest for-profit hospital chain in the United States, agreed to plead guilty to criminal conduct and pay more than $840 million in criminal fines, civil penalties, and damages for alleged unlawful billing practices. That's Rick Scott. That's Rick Scott's company.
View the theft of public funds the same way. It's a crime against all of us. Today, in conjunction with the Department of Justice and our federal partners, we are announcing the results from the largest healthcare fraud investigation.
Yeah. So this is the show now. This is what Jimmy does now. He reads basically Bongholio's press releases.
Thursday, July 17th, potential losses in Department of Justice history. And I'm announcing my largest tour coming up. We're going to be back in Toronto on Thursday, July 17th, and resulted in nearly $3 billion in false claims with over $15 million illegal dollars. Results matter, he says. Talk is cheap, and this is not if you're stealing from the public or violating your oath to serve, we're coming for you. God bless America and all those who defend her. And then Ann Vandersteel, she comes right back at him, Kurt, just like you did, and says, great job. Now what about the violations of due process for January 6th community, for the vax injured, for the destroyed
yeah, that's all in your fucking head. It's a fantasy. I don't know. Why? Where is QAnon going to get a freedom rebate? Weren't they supposed to get Nasara Jasara by now?
Families of Child Protective Services.
That's a good one.
Where funding comes from HHS, SSA, and Title IX. What about the constitutionally guaranteed rights that have been violated over and over? Where's the accountability? The evidence is all there. We expect you to ask us if you need it. 5 times August chimes in also and says, just wait, it's coming any day now. We're going to get him. You'll see. It's happening. Not now.
Yeah. This is turned into the same thing that Ben Shapiro does, where they just like read people's. Is that what I mean? Maybe there's a whole fucking cottage industry. Can somebody explain this to me, chat room? I mean, I recognize that at least I'm reacting to the actual statements by the people involved and the messaging sphere that is built up around it. You know, directly what Trump says, directly what somebody like Chip Roy says, directly what candidates and politicians and spokespeople say, and the news media that supports them and their argument. But I obviously referenced the videos on this, but reading other people's content as your content seems like theft, right? Just reading other people's jokes or takes on stuff. Like, it's one thing if you're scanning something and you're seeing what the response is publicly to something that just came out or whatever, but this is just old shit. Look what he's going after too. Look at the focus of these things. Is it Medicare and Medicaid fraud from someone like Rick Scott and the increased benefits for rich people against tax breaks for the working poor or those kind of things, or trying to raise minimum wage or any of that kind of stuff? The stuff that you would associate that Jimmy calls himself a leftist or on the left. No, what is it? COVID, Epstein, Benghazi, January 6th, Doge findings, Russia collusion, Ukraine impeachment. There's no justice in D.C., only theater for the peasants. And by the way, the Russia collusion, no arrests, they don't mean Trump or somebody who is involved in Russian collusion. They mean the people who made charges of collusion against Trump about Russia, which is, by the way, you'll never have those because they'll get discovery. And in that discovery, you'll be able to look in areas that Barr kept Mueller from looking into, namely the finances of Donald Trump, to prove that they had good reason to explore this, even though they were cut off from certain evidentiary elements when they wanted to make charges. Doge findings, what are you going to arrest? Because there's no fraud. Jan 6, no arrest, or I don't know. They just arrested one of the guys for murder and a couple of pedophiles that Trump let out, right? Also, who's getting arrested in Benghazi? I guess that what he means is Hillary?
Soft spot in his head.
So Butch Connor says, any updates on anything you talked about for 5 years until you became part of the swamp? And he retweets Dr. Simon Godek saying, COVID, no arrests. Epstein, no arrests. Justice in D.C., only
forever. Wow, that's better than I could say it. That's why I don't care about the new AI system that they're going to bring in, because it's the same meet the new boss, same as the old boss, forever. We're all related, these people. You know that, right?
Kash Patel, the
They're all related. So sorry, I think there's the cabal that runs everything is now inbred, according to Kurt, and I think that's part of the whole, like, Jews and Orthodox Jews that run everything are inbred. That was the story that Hassan mentions. That's become the circulating point. They're all related.
FBI director, he says $245 million seized, hundreds of defendants and medical professionals charged, and $15 billion in losses prevented in the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in history. Well done to all the states and federal partners who pushed this.
Keep going, Cash. I'm about to blow. Come on, keep going. Let me just get me over that hill with your motherfucker.
Fatima Khan says, Republicans, before you vote.
Jesus Christ. Is that what it is now? They just fucking read tweets back and forth? That's it? Holy shit. The WHO called Stop Kurt, right. Yeah, these are all right-wing talking points. This is all fucking, like residual QAnon shit from fucking 3 years ago. So fucking lazy. How is that the show? I'm just saying subscribe. I'm putting on real programming here. And I'm actually breaking down what you're seeing. With stuff that isn't already broken down. And by the way, let me show you something. So here's, what show is this? This is on the Blase. This is on the Blaze. Waiting for Justice. Understand who Jimmy Dore allegedly is. He's, workers' rights and the poor and left of Bernie Sanders. That's the sales point, right? Wait, FBI whistleblower still suspended. What is Kash Patel waiting for? The same complaint. Jimmy is basically, I guess, might as well just be working at the Blaze now.
Now, we at this show, we all cheered when Kash Patel was nominated to be the
Yeah, that's because you're stupid.
director of the FBI. We covered it here on the show, but now it's been months and
Yeah, sorry, you don't get to stop. Sorry, you don't get to dislike it now.
whistleblowers still haven't been made whole. So at this
Weird.
point, we must start asking hard questions.
I agree. Why ask the hard questions before the motherfucker gets in? It's ridiculous. It's like letting guys, in ski masks with guns into your house in the middle of the night and start going, I don't think these guys have a flat tire. It's time to start asking the hard questions because it's starting to look like a home invasion.
We can go back to December 9th when Kash Patel posted this on X, saying, I just wrapped up a wonderful meeting with Chairman Chuck Grassley.
Said no one ever. I'm sorry that I started, but it helps to keep it separates the wheat from the chaff.
I share his love for government transparency and whistleblower protection.
So I guess what you're saying is Chuck Grassley doesn't give a shit about whistleblower protection either. Okay, all right, that tracks.
So for more, let's go ahead and bring in FBI whistleblower Steve Friend. He's also the host of the American Radicals podcast and
Radicals!
Blaze News investigative journalist Steve Baker. So the Steves are here with me today to cover what is a very important topic. But Steve Friend,
I have a quick question. Why the fuck do you have so much floor space? Is there a dance section on this show? Maybe your voice wouldn't be so clappy and boomy in this environment if you had a real studio. The fuck?
I want to start with you because it feels like the whistleblower protection is kind of an oxymoron right now.
Well, yeah, because a lot of these guys aren't actual whistleblowers, too.
It absolutely is. I mean, whistleblower protection is tantamount to gun laws. The only people who actually obey them are law-abiding good people. But apparently the demons who work within the federal organizations like the FBI and the DOJ and all across all of our...
Why? Who gives a shit? If you're a whistleblower, you go either to the top, you bypass the people that would be between you and the support structure that could help you, the top tier of whatever your organization, or the president's office himself. I'm sorry. Why do Trump and Kash Patel and these assholes dodge? accountability in this situation? Why are you still bitching about deep state people slowing you down if you're on TV talking about exactly what you were whistleblowing about? What the fuck?
Bureaucracies, they're never held accountable, so why would they ever subscribe to
For what?
having to uphold their end of the bargain?
What bargain? What are you talking about?
You can see no greater examples than my friends like Marcus Allen, Garret O'Boyle, Phil Kennedy, Kyle Seraphin, and others who are not as prominent and public as we are, the suspendables, who have been indefinitely suspended, unpaid for years on end, and it doesn't seem like there's going to be any sort of resolution in the near future.
Maybe it's because you were fired for cause and there's nothing they can do about it.
So Baker, how do we get here? How have we gotten through the Christopher Wray FBI, and we now have a Trump administration that is
Sorry, Trump picked Christopher Wray too, stupid.
led now by
It was always Trump's FBI. It's been Trump's FBI. All during the Biden administration, it was Trump's FBI.
FBI Director Kash Patel. How do we get here at this point?
You voted for Jeffrey Epstein's wingman and Roy Cohn's last friend when he was dying, and you seem to think he's a good Christian man, or at least have been able to bullshit yourself into this. Seems to be that seems to be the way this worked out. You're full of shit, and you're still unaware.
How did we get to this point? Oh, that's a tough one, because I can go at this how we got here from many different trails, many different avenues. Got it
How about you voted for Trump and you get what you pay for, fucko?
here, but the simplest and most stark reminder for all of us is that the cult of the FBI still exists.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Has Kash Patel been hypnotized?
And the cult of the FBI has not been cleaned out yet. You don't get to be an agent of change or a deep state disruptor by coming in and just becoming the new cult leader. And that's what it feels like. Now, look, at the very beginning of this...
Hold on. So there are two possibilities here as I see it. There's a myriad, but there are two primary ones. One is Kash Patel was a pure and innocent and decent man, and has been, as he moved into this position of power, has been cajoled, bribed, or intoxicated by the power of the FBI and has fallen in line with the deep state, and now he's one of them. And this is how it always works. That's why somehow Democrats, and apparently Democrats always run the FBI, even though, you know, Ellie hardly ever votes Democrat. Somehow they throw it to them or something. But Kash Patel has just been, you know, pulled into this like a tractor beam. Or, this is another alternative, he was always full of shit. There was no massive fraud or some lie that you could sell to everyone. That differences of opinion or, you know, political issues on social media networks that had nothing to do with the government got you kicked to the curb, or got you violated the terms of service and they told you to go fuck yourself. And it wasn't the FBI that told them to, you know, remove your account, or the Biden White House, or even the Trump White House. They just did it because they didn't want their customer base to fucking die. And all these things are just have been in your head. That the problem Kash Patel has is when he got in there, he looked at the shit and he went, oh, okay, these people are nuts. None of this is true. I believe this bullshit, and now I can clearly see, once I've seen the evidence, that none of this has been true. Those are the two big options. And that the whistleblowers actually weren't whistleblowers in this case at all. They were just bitching about the current climate and the fact that they felt like they were on the downslope of history.
New Trump administration, we were cheering for the nominations of Kash Patel, Dan Bongino.
Yeah, and you don't get to stop. Sorry. Suck it.
When they were confirmed, we applauded, we gave them a standing ovation, and the guys in the suspendables heard directly from Kash, and he told them via text or private message that, look, I couldn't have done this without you. And then all of a sudden,
nothing.
They've been abandoned.
All right. Well, I'm just going to enjoy that for a second. I'm just going to sit here in chat room. Can you just bask in that for a minute? These are the people who are. These would be these guys. These guys are to Kash Patel what Elon Musk is to Trump, right? Right. Just it's nice.
So how did we get here?
You voted for assholes, and you haven't woken up to the fact that you were sold a bill of goods because you're either too stupid or evil or a combination of the two to be able to contemplate and the reality.
I don't know. We're not there yet. We certainly aren't where we should be, which is clear
Jail,
restoration for these guys, and not
clear restoration.
only restoration, but they need to be acknowledged for the patriotism of actually being the men of character that we expect federal agents to be.
Friend, I remember when we had you on the show while Kash was going through his nomination process, and you shared a story with us about how Kash himself
It was a beautiful story.
donated $5,000 to you and your family, and he didn't even want the credit or recognition for it. I feel like
Sounds like a payoff, actually.
there was no greater champion of Kash at that point in time than you and the rest of the
Yeah, it's and I guess you're going to give that $5,000 back and say "fuck you, buddy,"
Expendables.
right? When you give the money back, so when did you give it back? When right away, or when that happened, or did you write the check after this episode when she mentioned this? You're like, oh shit, right, fuck him, and you like take your $5,000. I don't need your $5,000, asshole. I'd rather live with my integrity. I'm fucking around. Like he's still.
Yeah, his foundation, Fight with Kash, reached out to me, and Kash himself, as a representative there, being on the top of the line, reached out and was able to offer that to my family heading into the holidays. It was extremely generous, and he very specifically said he didn't want to have any sort of credit for it. This is just something that he believed in to support whistleblowers, guys who would...
Yeah, that's because he was buying your consent for the position he knew he was going to be offered, and he would need that for that period of time, but that's the extent of what you're going to get from him, fucko. He bought you. You had a price. He knew it. The reason he wanted it on the down low was because you were being bribed to throw your weight behind him. Stupid.
come forward for the right reasons at the right time and actually adhere to their oath of office. And like you and like Steve Baker, I was waving pom-poms. I believe that we got our #1 draft choice. I still believe that. You know, I would like to have seen maybe a difference in strategy as he's entered in as the director.
Or any.
Of the FBI, maybe going in with more of a shock and awe rather than winning hearts and minds. I think that the presupposition that maybe he and Dan Bongino went in with was that there was just a lot of good men and women of the FBI, and they just needed to have their default settings reset so that they could go back to rigorous obedience to the Constitution. And I think that was maybe a foolish assumption to have, because really, what do you know about?
Yes, clearly the FBI are full of, commies, and they need to be rooted out. Bunch of fucking genuine Christians and commies and people who are like, but we should be fair and treat people honestly, which is not what Trump is asking for.
People within the FBI, particularly those at the Hoover building, who are going to surround you on a daily basis. And that is, they're people who have never said no to a bad idea, people who were gleefully abusing their rights and powers as sworn law enforcement officers, or at the very least were putting their head down and just following orders. And none of those are acceptable. So I think in the time that we've had now, which has been in excess of 4 months, we've gotten a pretty good sample size. And I'm really disappointed that we haven't seen the institutional changes. And then just from a personal matter, like my friend Garret O'Boyle exceeded now 1,000 days of unpaid indefinite suspension last weekend on Sunday. And this is a guy that the FBI actually investigated and adjudicated that he did not do anything wrong. And Kash Patel's been the director for 120 plus days, so he owns somewhere in the area of 12% of Garret O'Boyle's suspension time. A wave of a pen could easily resolve that situation, at least get him back on the payroll. The man has 4 small children, and he's in a situation right now where, because he is an employee of the FBI, unpaid of course, he needs their permission to seek outside employment, and they have stopped that from happening.
That would be, by the way, this guy. FBI agent who testified for Republicans was suspended over leaked sensitive information. House Democrats are asking Attorney General Merrick Garland to investigate whether Garret O'Boyle, whom Republicans presented as an FBI whistleblower, lied to Congress. Garret O'Boyle, an FBI agent who was presented presented in a public hearing by House Republicans as a whistleblower, was suspended by the Bureau because of internal investigators had concluded that he leaked sensitive investigative information to a right-wing group, Project Veritas, according to a Bureau official. House Democrats now accuse O'Boyle of lying to the committee and are referring the matter to Attorney General Merrick Garland. This is the lawmakers learned about the reason for O'Boyle's suspension, which was previously unreported in testimony that Jennifer Moore, the FBI's Executive Assistant Director for Human Resources, provided to the House Judiciary Committee Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. Parts of her testimony are included in a letter top Democrats on the Judiciary and Weaponization panels wrote to Garland, alleging that O'Boyle lied to the committee about leaking information before he was suspended. In the letter, Jerry Nadler, Stacey Plaskett, details several instances when O'Boyle, in interviews with committee staff and in the panel's public hearing, denied that he had leaked FBI information to the media. O'Boyle testified that he made Jim Jordan, of Ohio, who chairs the committee, aware of his suspension and provided him with a letter informing him of the FBI's decision. O'Boyle described the charges as nothing more than an allegation that claimed he never provided anyone outside the agency with non-public information before he was suspended. Okay, but did you speak to the media? Not prior to being suspended? No. Okay, so your testimony is that you never spoke to the media, that it was entirely false. What was in the suspension notice that you were handed? It was entirely false. What was in the suspension notice that you were handed? Correct. Okay. Democrats argue in their letter to Garland that Moore's testimony directly contradicts O'Boyle's claim. She provided the committee with several examples of when non-public information ended up in the public domain and explained how the internal investigation determined O'Boyle was responsible, according to their letter to Garland. Moore pointed to an interview Project Veritas conducted with an anonymous subject referred to as FBI whistleblower, said the agency was able to determine O'Boyle was that subject. According to his suspension letter, which was included in the Democrats' letter to Garland, O'Boyle was suspended by the FBI September 23rd of that year. The interview in question was posted by Project Veritas on May 12th last year. In addition to the interview, Moore said, the Bureau's investigation revealed that O'Boyle had also removed sensitive information from FBI computers and provided it to Project Veritas without authorization. Some of the information shared with the right-wing site was part of an active criminal investigation. She told the subcommittee there was an urgency to locate who was leaking the information because of the risk it presented, she said, according to the letter. There was a level of urgency because of the identity of the individual, and it appeared that he was still accessing case files and information that he wasn't authorized to have access to and disclosing it because we had seen information obviously in public forums. That would be the guy that he's saying has 4 children and is suspended and hasn't gotten his job back, and Kash Patel isn't going to give him his job back. Because if he does, it would violate the standards that the FBI has, and other people who did the exact same thing would get away with it. And think of this guy as the, I was about to say right-wing WikiLeaks, but that's what they became. A Snowden moment. If you change the rules for Snowden, you change the rules for everyone else, and it's hard to stop people from leaking stuff later on. That's why Patel probably isn't doing it.
For the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, Baker, we know Joe Hanneman wrote about the FBI whistleblower, about Garret O'Boyle himself in the 1,400 days that he has now been suspended. And he was saying how he recalls clarity, how Patel promised to fix the unjust suspension that he was nominated for FBI director back in November of 2024. O'Boyle said that he was told that he would be brought back to the FBI, have his security clearance restored, and be provided more than 140 weeks of back pay. There's so much in Joe Hanneman's piece about that. But just speak on this a little bit more about just Garret O'Boyle in general.
Well, this is the lowest hanging fruit that Kash Patel could reach up and grab that would return him to favor with.
No. If the dude leaked stuff, then it opens the door for everybody else who could fight their suspension based on the same rules. If he gets special dispensation because he's doing it for political reasons, you appreciate his leaks, but other people, you don't appreciate their leaks. They would have every reason to, you would have leaks coming out of the FBI and everywhere else hand over fist, because everybody would argue that I'm actually a whistleblower. This isn't even though I'm not showing you evidence of a crime, and what I'm showing you is actually just politically imbalanced stuff, or stuff that I think is hinky because I disagree with it. Everybody would be able to do that in the federal government and get away with it effectively because you let this guy have a pass. That's one of the reasons why they're holding back. But if they do that, that's exactly what will happen. And you know that people that lean towards our side of the aisle in the FBI, who are aware of the shenanigans that Trump is carrying out in law enforcement and the DOJ through Pam Bondi and stuff, would start pouring stuff to reporters like crazy.
The 80 million people that voted for President Trump would to actually provide restoration to the likes of Garret O'Boyle.
Yeah, no, most of the voters that voted for Trump don't give a rat's ass about these guys. They're not going to.
To Steve Friend, I mean, honestly, we're talking about a couple of Boy Scouts here. So we're not talking about what this new narrative that's being fostered and leaked by somebody inside the Hoover building that, oh, there's additional character issues inside of their files.
Uh-huh.
Well, really? Well, then show us them. And then...
Well, no. No. You trust Kash Patel? You trust Bongholio? Then suck it up. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear doubt. You guys don't get to doubt. Democrats get to doubt. We're allowed. We get to hash stuff out and be complex about it and all that kind of stuff. But we don't because we don't expect royal-like fealty to our leaders. You do. So if Trump put them in charge, you can shut the fuck up.
Beyond that, let's talk about the character issues of all 35,000 employees of the...
No, let's not. Because those people didn't get swapped around, including any future whistleblowers that you might, I guess, be attacking accidentally right now. The people who Trump put in charge are either doing the job that they're being told to do, or they are not. You have to decide. Either they've come in and discovered that actually this dude you're talking to and the other guy, O'Boyle, are actually guilty. They did some fucked up stuff. I understand that. They did some fucked up shit. And they deserve what they got. That's one of your options. The other is they didn't. They're innocent victims, but they're innocent victims of Trump and Kash Patel, not Biden.
FBI, if we're going to do that. There's none of us without sin. There's none of us that don't have...
Shut the fuck up.
...character flaws. And there's probably nobody that doesn't have something negative in their file, except maybe Garret O'Boyle and Steve Friend. So this...
Jesus Christ. Get out of here. They leaked information willfully. And part of it happened after they were suspended, but still had not been fired. So even then, like, why are you okay with them leaking stuff after they've been suspended? Which means they were accessing computer systems they did not have the right to access. Now, why wouldn't you just come forward and go, this is me, here's what I saw, I don't have access to this stuff, but it exists in the servers, and I'm just telling the truth because there's a crime here, and I'm going to testify in front of Congress, and I'm going to tell them the truth, but I'm not going to steal files and give them to Project Veritas. You don't have to commit a crime to be a whistleblower. You don't. You just have to actually have courage. But the problem is these guys weren't really blowing the whistle. They were trying to alter the balance of power inside the DOJ and inside the FBI against the will of the sitting president and the Justice Department at the time in favor of a pussy-grabbing fraudster from New York.
As I said, it's low-hanging fruit. This is not something that was going to take months and months to work out and figure out and analyze. This was something that Kash Patel, as Steve said, could have done with a stroke of a pen.
Right. So if he's not, it's because these guys are either guilty or you know he's been compromised, and you guys are going to have to deal with that. It's such a joy. And there's going to be similar stuff related to this when it comes to the big brown bill, the big bullshit bill, the budget busting bill in the House and the Senate, or in the House as it comes from the Senate. This is, yeah, I don't know if we saw the Murkowski, like some people saw the staring fest that happened. Let's see, one thing. I'm going to bring up one more thing, and then I'll leave you guys for the evening, and I will see you tomorrow. I think tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, we have Phil and the Major with us. Aw, there's a little kitty. Oh, meet Possum. Andrea's showing Possum. I'm going to show Possum's the little kitty. Look at Possum. Aw. So adorable. And wet, apparently. Did you just find that cat outside? Good Lord. Super sweet. It didn't just blow into your yard, did it?